Well, as we mentioned earlier, a new Marquette Law School poll was released this afternoon.
With 6 days to go, it is the final poll before Election Day.
Joining us to break down all the latest numbers, the director of said poll, Charles Franklin. Welcome back.
Hi, Charles.
Good to be here.
6 days to go, and it can't be any tighter, especially in the governor's race.
It really is. The governor's race is dead tied at 48% for Evers, 48% for Michaels. That race has been tight, and it's been tightening until now with the tie. It's also interesting that 4 years ago, this is exactly where we were in our final poll, a dead tie in the governor's race, a race ultimately decided by 1.1 points.
Oh, that's really interesting. And this is among likely voters, just to refresh our viewers.
How's the trend been over the months? Is it pretty much been the same?
In the governor's race, it's tightened. It was a 4-point Evers lead in August that went to a 2-point and then a 1-point and now a dead tie. There's not been very much variation there, as you can see, just tighter and tighter until here we're tied.
Let's take a look at the numbers in the U.S. Senate race.
Here, there has been more variation. In this last poll, we have Johnson at 50% to Mandela Barnes at 48%, a 2-point margin. But 3 weeks ago, we had Johnson ahead by 6. This race has varied. Right after the primary, Barnes had a lead in August, but then it was a 1-point toss-up with Johnson 1 point ahead in September, and then that 6-point Johnson lead, but now contracting to a 2-point lead. So all of these are inside the 5-point margin of error for the poll, and I think toss-up is really the only word to describe these two races.
Let's look at independent voters. I think they're going to be the key here, don't you think?
They've certainly looked like it. They have shifted a bit, quite a bit in the Senate race, somewhat less in the governor's race. But we've got both parties almost perfectly united, more than 95%. 97% even of partisans voting with their party, virtually no crossover vote. So that leaves it in the hands of independents. They've shifted from being pretty strongly for Barnes in August to a bit for Johnson, and in this poll, 6 or 7 points for Johnson among independents. What Barnes has done, though, is bring Democrats more cohesively behind him. His support of Democrats went up from 93% to 98% in this poll. So you can see where some of his recovery is. In the governor's race, there's been less movement, with independents favoring one candidate or the other by just a percentage point or two.
Is there any part of the state in particular that you think might turn this race one way or the other, like perhaps Milwaukee?
I hate to say it all comes down to turnout, but it all comes down to turnout. Turnout in Milwaukee is something that varies, especially tends to fall off in midterms, but we'll see. The Democrats especially, but both parties are working really hard to get those voters who voted for the first time in 2018 or in 2020 to come back to the polls and support their candidates. So I think there is extraordinary turnout efforts. In this poll, we see turnout just a shade below where it was in 2018. But 2018 set a record for turnout, and there's more than enough uncertainty in our polling data that we could see turnout above 2018 levels.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tight race is going to be a long night.
Yes. Do you think we'll see winners by the end of the evening, or do you think, given the tight margins, it might be, like Mark said, a very, very long night?
I think we'll see winners because the amount of absentee voting is down this year, as we expected it to be compared to the high levels during the COVID epidemic in 2020. Whether that still results in some delays in counting, I think we'll wait and see. But Wisconsin has a track record of finishing the count at least sometime in the wee hours of Wednesday morning, unless it's so extremely close that it really is, a matter of a few thousand votes.
It has been a very long campaign, Charles. Thanks for your help all along the way. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Great to see you, Charles. Thanks so much.